Hey everyone, my name is Devon Brown, and in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 tips for speaking more confidently from stage. Look, if you've ever had to go on stage, or maybe you have to go on stage soon, and that's why you ended up finding this video. Either way, dealing with stage fright and anxiety and the nervousness and the butterflies is something that we all have to deal with. Real talk, I have been on stage all of 11 billion times, and even to this day, especially if it's a new audience that I haven't been in front of before, I have to deal with a little bit of stage fright. I have to deal with a little bit of anxiety, right? Like, no shame, just real talk. So the question is, how do you become more confident when you go on stage, to be able to walk onto any stage and to know deep down, I got this? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about in today's video, and I'm going to give you 7 ways to make that happen. So let's jump right into it. Tip number 1 for speaking more confidently on stage is speak every chance you get. Now, this goes back to the old adage, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear around that thing is certain. I kind of misquoted that a little bit, but you get the essence of what I'm saying. The point is that the more you do something, the more comfortable your body and your nervous system is going to be doing it, right? The more you do something and the more success you have doing something, then the more times, the more instances you have for your mind to draw on and to be like, oh, we've done this before, we've done this before, and once you've done something a bunch of times, then the, oh, we've done this befores, that outweighs the nervousness and the anxiety and the stage fright, and that helps you become more confident on stage. So if you want to become more confident in anything, just do it a bunch. It is that simple. And by the way, if you're thinking to yourself something like, yeah, but Devon, I gotta go speak, in front of, my bosses for my corporation, and I can't do that a bunch because it's only this one speech. No, what I'm telling you is just get on any stage as many times as you can. I don't care if that stage is a camera on your phone. I don't care if that stage is at your kid's Little League game. Don't be, silly or do something nonsense. But any chance that you have to speak in public is a chance to get more comfortable being on stage, right? If you got a wedding coming up, then take a chance to stand up. When the wedding MC says, does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Stand up. That counts for you being on stage. And the more you are on stage, the more confident you're going to be being on stage in the future. So tip number 1 for speaking more confidently is to speak every chance you get. Tip number 2 for being more confident on stage is to practice and prepare, and then practice and prepare some more. Quick question for you. Have you ever gone into, back when you were in school, or heck, maybe you still are in school, I have no earthly idea how old you are, but you go into class and you got a test, and you know that you didn't study for the test. How confident are you? Probably not very, right? On the other hand, what if you knew that you were fully prepared? What if you knew that you knew that information ice cold? What would you then do? Or how, even better yet, how would you feel if you were to walk into the test knowing that you knew the information ice cold? You would be confident AF, right? Did he just say AF? I think he did. Yes, I did, okay? So I want you to prepare. Prepare your speech, prepare it ahead of time. Practice it, say it in the mirror. Practice and prepare, practice and prepare, practice and prepare, because that makes you comfortable, and when you are more comfortable, you can then be more confident on stage. So tip number 2, practice and prepare, practice and prepare. Tip number 3 for being more confident on stage is positive self-talk. Now, real quick, when I say positive self-talk, one of the things that always happens is that somebody in their mind's like, Devon, are you telling me to say, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and doggone it, people like me? No, I am not telling you to say that, but that being said, if you wanna say that, if that helps you, if that kind of positive self-talk helps you, then high five. What I'm talking about is shifting the conversation in your mind from things to be worried about or negative about, and phrasing them in such a way that yields a more positive result. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. So instead of having a conversation in your mind that says something like, man, I really hope they like my speech, you instead change that conversation to, man, I cannot wait to add value to the life of my audience, right? switch. I changed it from I hope they like me to I can't wait to add value to them. Or maybe you're speaking in front of the biggest crowd you've ever spoken in front of. I remember this happened to me once. And instead of saying, oh my God, I've never spoken to a crowd this big before, you instead change that conversation to, I am so excited to be able to touch more lives than I've ever touched before at one time. So I'm shifting the conversation to one that is more positive. All right, so tip number 3 for being more confident on stage is positive self-talk. Shift the conversation to one that is more positive and more empowering. And by the way, like I said, if for you that means you saying to yourself that people like you, then high five, do your thing. I ain't mad at you. All right, tip number 4 for being more confident on stage is to lean on what has worked in the past. Let me ask you a question. How do comedians get so good on stage? I will tell you if you don't know. What they do is they write out a bunch of jokes, and then they go to a comedy club and they tell a bunch of jokes. And then of the jokes that they've written, they'll notice which ones worked and which ones didn't. And they'll take the ones that didn't and they'll throw them away, or they'll reword them. And then when they go to the next comedy club, the first thing they'll do is they'll lean on what's worked in the past. They'll find the things that have worked in the past, and that's where they'll start from. You need to do the same. You need to be aware of the things that have worked in the past for you, or for other speakers for that matter, and lean on what has worked in the past, okay? You don't have to be new and reinvent yourself all the time. But if you lean on what's worked in the past, then you're like, oh, I'm gonna say or do this thing on stage that I know has worked in the past, and I can be confident in the response that I'm gonna get. I can be confident in how I'm gonna deliver it because I've had success with it in the past. So tip number 4 for being more confident on stage, lean on what's worked in the past, all right? Tip number 5 for being more confident on stage is to record yourself. It's so funny. I remember once I had just gotten off stage and I thought I did a horrible job. I was like, man, this really sucked. I can't believe I just did that bad. And somebody had been recording it. And so I went and I watched the recording and I was like, oh, what do you know? I wasn't that bad. When I could see myself, I could see all of the good that I was doing, and I could see the ways that the audience was responding and how I was communicating to them as somebody from the audience and not in my own head. So often in our own heads, the mistakes that we make, we hear them in our own heads, right? We're like, oh, I meant to say X and I really said Y, and we think it's a mistake, and then we ding ourselves for that, and then we're like, oh man, the crowd hates me. But the crowd didn't know that you were supposed to say X instead of Y. They don't care. They're enjoying the content. And when you have a chance to record yourself and watch yourself, you get to see yourself, how the audience sees you, and you realize how awesome you really are. And not only that, but recording yourself gives you an opportunity to find the areas that you need to improve and improve on them. And that in and of itself makes you more confident. So tip number 5 for being more confident on stage is to record yourself. Tip number 6 for being more confident on stage is to visualize. Now, tip number 1 was to speak every chance you get, to go on stage every chance you get. However, we're defining stage, right? Whether a YouTube video or a physical stage. But tip number 6 is brilliant because this gives you the opportunity to be on stage whenever you want to, in the theater of your mind. There's a book I'm gonna recommend to you. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It is the OG personal development book. If you've never read Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, you need to write that down and go get it. There's even a newer version. If you like things on audio, you'll see a version with a gentleman by the name of Dan Kennedy. I believe if you see that version, you can download that on your Audible or something like that. But Psycho-Cybernetics is one of the OG personal development books, and so much of today's personal development draws upon psycho-cybernetics. And anyway, one of the great tools that that book gives us is this idea of visualization. And when I talk about visualizing yourself on stage, I'm talking about actually visualizing yourself from the first person. So don't imagine seeing yourself on stage. What I'm suggesting is that you imagine seeing it through the eyes as if you'd see it. So see yourself walking up the stairs, see your shoes, see yourself turning to the audience, see the audience clapping along with you, give your speech to them. Imagine, like, see yourself walking around the stage, like through your eyes of you actually being on stage, and walk around the stage, high five the audience, converse with them, give your speech as if you're on stage. Whatever you're actually going to experience, or to the best of your knowledge, with the thing that you think you're gonna experience, imagine that, visualize that, and go through that. That gives you the opportunity to be on stage as many times as you want to beforehand. The great thing is that the brain can't really tell the difference between real and imagined. So if you imagine yourself on stage 100 times, then that's going to give you the confidence as if you've been on stage 100 times. One of the things that I like to do when I visualize is that I visualize something going wrong, and then I visualize myself handling it in an awesome way. And that way, if and/or when something actually does go wrong on the stage, I've got the confidence to handle it, to take care of it, because I've already visualized myself doing it like a gazillion times. So tip number 6 for being more confident on stage is to visualize, and go get that book, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. All right, tip number 7 for being more confident on stage is to see yourself as others see you. Now let me explain what I mean by this. Have you ever been in an audience listening to a speaker and had seen that speaker mess up, seen them flub, seen them stumble over their words? You probably have. When that happened, did you think to yourself, oh my gosh, this is the worst speaker ever. How dare they be on stage? That is absolutely a no for me. Get them off the stage right now. No. As a matter of fact, if you saw a speaker stumble over their words, like I'm sure I've even done in this video, you didn't think much of it. If anything, it humanized them to you a little bit. Here's the thing. When you're on stage speaking, you can be confident in understanding and confident in the idea that people see you the same way. That if you mess up on stage, they don't care. Like, our mess ups, internally, we catastrophize them. They are the biggest thing ever in the history of the world. But when you see yourself as the audience sees you, then what you realize is that your flubs and your mess ups don't even register on their radar, because like I said, they just make you more human. So those are my 7 tips for speaking more confidently on stage. I hope at least one of them helps you and you can pull from, whether it's the one about positive self-talk or visualization or getting on stage more, whatever it is. I hope you take one or more of these tips, apply them to being a public speaker and knocking the ball out of the park and having more confidence when you go on stage. As always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it, share it, comment on it, all that good stuff. My name is Devon Brown. I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, Devon here. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and connect with me on social media. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to share it with your friends.